Hey everyone, how you doing? My name is James Graves. This is Nigeria Rewind, the podcast. Uh, Dave Salvator, how you doing, man?
Doing well, man. Good to be with you this evening.
All right. Well, I got to ask because we're gonna have the experience of listening to some Brazilian music that I'm just really stoked on. Your passion is for this, and this is what you're going to be presenting to the Peacock Lounge. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been playing music for a better part of 50 years. Love American jazz, but then I had the good fortune of marrying a beautiful woman from Brazil, and we've been together for over 25 years now. And I also basically married into that culture, and I knew about some Brazilian music, before I met my wife, because things like people like Antonio Carlos Jobim and Sergio Mendes, who kind of brought some elements of Brazilian music to the American kind of pop scene, mostly in the 1960s, and then Stan Getz kind of made a Brazilian connection. And if you look at a lot of major jazz artists, a lot of them have somewhere along the way something like a Brazilian project, right? They all kind of get hip to Brazilian music and go, wow, there's really something going on here. And so what I wanted to do with SARAVA was bring together a group of musicians who really kind of understood Brazilian music, had really spent time with it, really had a passion for it, but also had kind of an American jazz musical aesthetic. To kind of try to bring together the vibe and the groove of Brazilian music with kind of an American jazz approach to it, which is a way to basically lay down melodies and then really kind of turn the band loose and see what happens. But in more of a Brazilian context, and that's what SARAVA is.
Man, as I said, we're looking at all the instruments you have in the back. What got you started?
Well, what got me started was, it started with piano lessons with a lady down the street, and then that became clarinet in the 4th grade, and that turned into saxophone in the 5th grade, and I never looked back. Been pretty much playing ever since. It's really probably really my great love in terms of things that I do, and fortunately, I have a wife, a partner who's super supportive, and she loves music, and she of course loves Brazilian music. So she's just been just an amazing just partner, as I've kind of been on this musical journey all these years. And and I do have quite the collection of instruments, totally guilty as charged. But I got to say they're kind of, these are my mistresses back here, right? And that includes 3 saxophones actually that belonged to my grandfather. He played professionally in the Cleveland area and had a dance band called Rhythm Cavaliers in like the 1920s and pretty much until kind of the economy tanked, going into the 30s. Right. And then of course he started a family, and then he kind of changed careers and became a tailor, but he still played. So and then my dad was a piano player, and there was always a piano in the house growing up, and my dad had a pretty solid collection of records, and that sort of got me going. And he loved to tell the story about the day I stumbled onto his Charlie Parker record and basically dropped the needle on that thing, and I didn't move for about 3 hours because I was just like, what is this? Okay, I got to spend some time with this. And and there's a big picture of Bird up here on my wall. You can't quite see it, but definitely one of my great heroes, my musical heroes. I mean, just, what he did to bring music forward, obviously, we all know. I mean, he was one of the great architects of bebop and really helped, bring jazz forward in a way that was just so significant.
My name is James Graves. This is Nigeria Rewind, the podcast. Dave, I want you to, there's just so many different sizes and shapes of saxophones that you have back there. Maybe you can let some of us see some of the not so popular ones besides the soprano and like that.
Sure. Here, let me go get one for you. Hang on a second.
All right.
Start with this one, which is, so this is one called a sopranino, and it's a little guy. This is the next one up in the saxophone family from the soprano. It's actually an E-flat instrument, and it's an octave above an alto saxophone. And there's been a wonderful tribute project to John Coltrane that has featured the music of Andrew White in terms of arrangements of some of Coltrane's greatest music. And I've had the good fortune of playing essentially a saxophone choir with a drummer. And it's kind of almost like a Coltrane Elvin kind of a concept. And I've had the good fortune of getting to play on that program now for a couple of years. I think we're going to do it again this fall. And it does include a sopranino part. And these are not a lot of people have sopraninos, honestly. So I sort of volunteered to play the sopranino part. So that's been a really kind of fun way to get this horn out and get to use it, in a pretty interesting context.
Saxophone Summit, I think it's September 20th.
Something like that.
Yeah, September, because I'm hosting that. Again.
Yeah.
Actually, that's where you and I met.
It is, absolutely. I'm so glad we did. Yeah. It's a wonderful project. Yeah.
Yeah. Craig, I mean, he's a trained fanatic, and this is his love, doing something for Train each year. So yeah, he's fiercely working on it. I just saw him the other day.
Yep.
So and I have the privilege of voice hosting those, so that's always a lot of fun. And it seemed like the crowds are getting a little bit bigger at Golden Gate Park at the theater. So anyway, yeah, that's great. All right, what else you got back there that we're not used to seeing?
So my other, I guess, sort of extreme, I guess I'll call it, at the other end of the spectrum is, I'll stand up and show you this one. This is a low A baritone sax, which I also, I love playing Barry. In fact, I played some Barry on SARAVA. For whatever reason, baritone lays really nicely on Brazilian music. And so I'll have, at the show, I'll have a soprano, a tenor, and a Barry. And then I also play some keys. So here
okay.
It's one way.
Quite a collection.
Yeah, it is. No, it's again, it's just one of those things where to this day, just the sound of a saxophone, particularly if it's a flair I haven't heard before, and I suddenly hear someone who's got just a beautiful sound, or they're coming at the horn with just an interesting concept. It's like, it'll just stop me in my tracks to this day. I mean, I'll be working along and maybe just, surfing, looking for some new music and come across something, or you can just be out and about, just anywhere and just suddenly hear something. It's just like, okay, whoa, that's something different. I got to put my ears on that for a minute and see what that's about. That's still, I'm so glad as I've kind of moved through my years, that sense of wonder, I think, is still kind of with me about the music, and people finding, Quincy Jones used to talk about, the miracle of how many things we do with just 12 notes. The 12 notes of a chromatic scale, and look at all the kind of music we've created. Everything from Bach to bebop and beyond, it's all based on those 12 notes, right? So, because as we move through our lives, we start getting that feeling of, well, I've seen a thing or two, but trying to kind of hang on to that sense of wonder, and I will still, to this day, there's just some new music going that suddenly just grabs me. Like I said, it'll just stop me in my tracks, and I gotta stop, check it out, and just take it in a little bit, see what the vibe's like, and just think about, okay, I gotta go do some of that.
You will be performing at the Peacock Lounge on the 30th of this month. What can we expect to hear from the group?
So as I mentioned, the concept kind of brings together a Brazilian kind of vibe, Brazilian grace, Brazilian rhythms. A lot of American jazz listeners have probably heard samba and bossa nova. The interesting thing about samba in particular, so bossa nova is something of a derivative of the samba, right? Samba has been in Brazil for over a century. And the interesting thing about samba in Brazil is kind of like swing here in the U.S. in the sense of, you say the word samba, and that can mean a lot of different things in Brazil. That can mean anything from what's called an escola de samba, or samba school, which is where you see the big parades during Carnaval, and you see like hundreds of percussionists just bring in just this thunderous groove, and the dancers, and it's an amazing spectacle. But then it can go all the way down to what's called like pagode, for instance, which is usually what people play like at a family dinner party. After the meal is done, the instruments come out, right? And pagode is usually a couple of guys playing percussion, maybe one or two guitar players, and everybody sings, right? And that's another style of samba. So samba has all these different eras of style, and then all these regional styles. and it's I still to this day. I mean, again, I've been studying and been a student of this music for over a quarter century, and I still feel like I'm just scratching the surface sometimes. But beyond samba and bossa nova, which again are fairly familiar to American listeners, we also delved into some of the rhythms from the northeast of Brazil. One rhythm in particular called the baião, which is just this really wonderful groove and rhythm. It primarily is done by small dance groups. I mean, when I say small, I'm talking like 3 or 4 players. Most of them are all playing acoustic instruments, and they will come into a room like a small party, and they will play just those couple of instruments, and they'll keep the whole room dancing the whole night. I mean, and it's quite something. And a lot of those grooves fall under a bigger category called forró, which is from the northeast of Brazil. And there's a bunch of different rhythms there, but the one that we really are kind of most fond of is called the baião, and you'll hear us doing some of that. And then the other thing we do is you'll be hearing some music probably you've never heard before from composers you may or may not have heard of, but we'll also have a little bit of Antonio Carlos Jobim's music in there, just for some sort of familiar touchstone for an American audience. And then we also like to take some select American tunes and sort of take them for a trip to Brazil, right?
Fantastic.
As an example, like we'll take the ballad My Foolish Heart, which is such a gorgeous ballad, and then we'll take that and we'll kind of put that into kind of a Brazilian context, a Brazilian groove, and it lays really nicely in that groove. So we do some things like that as well. So we try to kind of mix it up a little bit. Again, give that American audience, a few things that they're like, oh yeah, okay, I see what you're putting down there. And then some things that'll be like new for them that hopefully, maybe they haven't heard before, and they'll kind of dig and go, wow, okay, maybe I need to climb inside of this and see what this is about.
Well, what's interesting is that we have a very diverse, small but diverse crowd that comes, and we started getting some that are dedicated to come in that make the show that Friday of each month. Mm-hmm. So I'm quite sure, because it sounds like I'm going to really enjoy it. And especially since you made a pretty good explanation of different styles of Brazilian music, because to me, I think I know the difference between Afro-Cuban and Brazilian, but still, I might wind up getting them twisted across. But to me, the bottom line is just the beat. You just can't stop. You just can't stop, So I'm really looking forward to that. Really, I am. So I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You will be go ahead, pub yourself. Where are you going to be at on the 30th?
We're going to be at the Peacock Lounge in the Haight neighborhood of San Francisco. Very much looking forward to it. It'll be an evening of Brazilian jazz with SARAVA, and hope to see you all there.
And on that note, take care, my friend. Looking forward to seeing you later.
Equally. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.